Today I pay tribute to one of the founding fathers of extreme cinema. The hell am I? Who am I here?
Hello guys, welcome back to Beyond the Realms, and this is a historical YouTube moment because joining me today is the headbanger from HorrorsBall.
Greetings.
He came in, via teleport and showed up here.
I was wandering the streets of Indy and you were cool enough to take me in.
Yeah, it all worked out.
Just worked out
perfectly, So today we have a very special review of an infamous film, to say the least. This film came about before, shock cinema became the big trendy thing to do, which it is a lot nowadays. And the film we're going to be reviewing is NEKROMANTIK. And how exactly do you say his name? You say it a lot better.
Jörg Buttgereit.
There you go.
That's a German in me.
Which you met today at Days of the Dead, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. So basically, yes. First off, yep, I agree. And this comes all the way from New York.
Yes.
Headbanger brought in here. Great Lakes Brewing Company.
Brewed in Ohio, Cleveland.
Yeah. Damn.
So
I need to look for this at Wasteland sometimes.
Lake Erie Monster, which you've never had before.
Yes. And it looks delicious. I can't wait.
Great bottle with a monster on it.
The artwork has me salivating in and of itself here. The trusty old weapon, opener here that I always take to Wasteland and use.
We've been drinking Coors Light, so this is going to taste
amazing.
Extra amazing.
As Crazy would say,
Cheers.
Oh man.
Punch in the face.
Delicious.
Fitting for this film, I think.
Imperial India Pale Ale. Yeah, I agree. Yes. Definitely very strong, which is exactly how I like it.
Especially after Coors Light.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, like you said.
Shock.
Yeah, it is.
That's like watching Adam Sandler movie and then putting it in Cannibal Holocaust.
Yeah.
You say, right?
Or Lion King and then Cannibal Holocaust.
Right?
So, okay, NEKROMANTIK, for those of you that haven't seen it, we'll spend a little short time here on the plot. It tells the story of Rob, who is a necrophiliac. Him and his girlfriend, they're into some very bizarre things.
Kinky.
Yeah, very kinky, to say the least. He works for what's it called, Joe's Street Cleaning Agency, which they basically go and clean up accidents, not using gloves or anything. Also, which is kind of like opening scene. It's like they're not even using gloves. It's kind of fucked up.
Which is, of course, a real job that. Occupation that people out there really do. Yeah,
and hopefully they wear gloves. But
well, I would think, but
maybe that's their thing. Maybe that's how they get the job. But anyway, they go and they clean up these accidents, and he you can tell he's into some very bizarre things. Like it shows him sitting there watching TV, and he's watching this documentary where it's talking about how extreme horror films and extreme violence, watching it can possibly affect you, and then also at this same time he's having these visions of this rabbit getting killed. Like they show him killing it and they show him hanging it up and tearing all the fur off, and then it cuts back to what he's watching in the documentary. Well, then there's this guy that gets killed and he's thrown into a lake, so they go to clean up this accident, this mishap, and they pull the body out, and it's up to it was Rob, right? Yes, Rob. It's up to Rob to go and dispose of this body, take it back to the morgue. Well, he takes it home to his girlfriend. So, you know, they basically have their way with this corpse.
That's when the kinkiness begins to show itself.
I mean, you know there's something crazy going to happen right off the bat. You know, just the tone of the film, how it starts with that car accident and the eyeball and all this shit. And, you know, there's several things that happen. It's, you know, this review, I have to say, is probably going to be just full of spoilers because this is an older film. Most of you's probably already seen it. So we're just going to say it now. This is going to be a wide open review with spoilers. Shouldn't you say?
Definitely.
Yeah. So anyway, you know, they get the corpse home. They're doing all this crazy shit to it, and you know, Rob basically loses his job. So his girlfriend leaves him, takes the corpse, and he just goes off the fucking deep end. And the last half hour of this film is some of the most insane and over the top stuff you probably ever witness.
No question.
Yeah.
And you're either gonna like it or you're not gonna like it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now we'll get to our thoughts.
Yeah. So. I've spoken up, so you take it from here. What do you think?
I guess I'm definitely a huge fan of this film. I'm a huge fan of Yor in general. Pretty much enjoy all his films on varying levels, but NEKROMANTIK definitely my favorite of his films. I think we were talking earlier. I'm not I wouldn't call myself a huge fan of shock cinema, but when it's done well and when its intentions are honest and pure, I really respect it. And I think this is an example of that. And this is in the 80s, and I think
87.
Yeah. And even besides, before we even talk about kind of the intentions of the film, just I enjoy how it looked. This is a very low budget film.
Yeah.
It has that griminess to it, that dirty feel to it.
Just extreme dread, man. I mean, just the look of it right off the bat is just like, oh god.
So regardless of your feelings, I think it conveys that, like you said, that dread, that dreariness. I think he did a really good job at portraying that with a very low budget. It's dirty. Their apartment. He has a lot of jars on the shelves.
Charles Manson picture on the wall and shit.
Very strategically placed in a lot of shots where you see it behind. Yeah. He's got jars with body parts in it. Yeah. He's dirty all the time. They even have, when they have like their sexual relations, it's very, like, you get that 80s kind of punk raw feel to it, which I really liked about the film. It has that rawness to it. So even whether you end up liking the film or not, I think if you're into that kind of dirty 80s low budget vibe, I think you'll appreciate that. And the fact that it's German, I think, adds to that. Adds to that feeling. And so off the bat, just watching the film, I just love the vibe of it, the atmosphere that it conveys to the viewer. I think, regardless of your feelings on the slant that he takes with his message or whatever. But I love the film. Like you said, the last half hour is probably. I always joke around that to me this film has two endings, which we don't have to get exactly with what happens. But there's a certain scene where lead is running up this hill. Yeah. And there's this very pretty music playing in the background. That's another thing. I think the soundtrack is great for this film.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. The score is just amazing. Really, I mean, even right out of the gate, the very opening one is, it's great. It's really amazing.
Really good score. There's this pretty scene, and I remember when I first watched this with some buddies who hadn't seen it. When I watched it with them, we watched this scene and we're like, this is great if this movie ends right here. This is like the best ending ever. And it doesn't. And then I'm immediately ready to be disappointed. Yeah. Because I think they're going to lose it. And then, of course, there's a scene that... Oh, God. Probably the most infamous scene of the movie, which I guess we'll see if we say what it is or not. But there's a particular scene that if you've seen it, you know what I'm talking about, that the film basically ends on. And to me, in my mind, it was kind of like this double ending of like this pretty moment. And then it ends with this over-the-top, ridiculous scene.
I guess you could call it a climax suicide.
Bada bing.
Yeah. Like I said, we're talking spoilers here, so why not just flat out say it? It's literally a climax suicide, which, I guess there's certain standards we can only go to here on YouTube, possibly. I mean, it's about as extreme as you can get, really, man. It's wild. But, one of the things when just rewatching this film because of Yor being at Days of the Dead, one of the things that amazes me is once they get the corpse home and they start to do their thing with it, like the whole aspect of the shooting completely changes. Like it goes into this really bizarre, like like a fade type effect, to where everything just kind of blurs, and it's just really like artsy. You know?
That's
what I'm talking about.
Yeah,
how it just like the image kind of stays in one place and it blurs and it kind of moves around. It's just it really throws you off, because first off, you're thrown off by what you're seeing. You're seeing this corpse laying there. You're seeing them literally put a fucking pipe into it, putting a condom over it, so you know it's like, oh my god, where is this film going to go?
And you're thinking almost more like over the top cheese, and then it does give you some little hints of artsiness to it, the way it's shot and the way the music, and like that's why I love York so much. Actually, is all his films kind of, as extreme as they are, they have a great artsy Euro feel to them, which I personally love that type of stuff.
Oh yeah, me too, man.
And
all the way.
you know. That's a cool element to his films, I think, the way they're shot. And just the extremity of, we're so saturated now, which we'll get into, extreme films. We've kind of, as horror fans, you become desensitized. Yeah. And then, especially if you're a 10, 15, 20 plus year horror fan, we've seen it all. And this film, even when you watch it now, like the scene with the corpse, it's really extreme looking. Yeah. How good the corpse looks and what they're doing to it.
Well, like the skin is all like decompose and pull tight over the bones, and it just looks real. I mean, there's certain parts of the effects in this where it does look dated and it does look bad, and that comes from being low budget and of its time. But still, there's so much more that still, even to this day, looks amazing, to where it's like, holy crap, man. And I mean, even the stuff that doesn't work out so much now and look dated, it still works if you put yourself in this time frame.
Exactly.
1987. I mean, come on, man. Look at the stuff that was coming out in 1987 and compare it to this. I mean, there's nothing. This is the biggest kick to the balls you can possibly imagine. And even to this day, it still is.
I think the low-budget griminess, too, works to its advantage.
Oh,
you know, I think
completely.
Even if some of the effects, which at times look really great and at times are dated, like you said, I think it still has that trashy, old,
but most of them do still hold up very well.
I watched this. You watched it recently. I showed this to our bass player about a year ago, and he was just blown away by it.
Yeah.
Let's get to some of the problems you may have with the film.
Well, I mean, overall, it's just kind of the repetitiveness of it. Like, it kind of, you know, basically it's this guy who is a necrophiliac, and his girlfriend is. They basically have issues, a lot of issues, and they get this corpse and they're fucking. I mean, there's not a lot to the story. You know, that's one of the things I think that hampers the film to some people, and I've heard a lot of people actually say that they think it's boring, it gets dull to them. I can see that. I can understand that.
I can understand it too.
Yeah, I mean, there isn't
a
lot to it.
Time.
Yeah, but to me, it kind of carries itself on those shocking moments, and you know, I personally, and you know, the whole shock cinema thing, I went through this phase where I purposely sought out films like this, and Salo, however you want to say it, you know, that, Men Behind the Sun, All the Faces of Death, the Traces of Death. You know, I purposely sought out stuff like that, but anymore, I guess I'm just becoming an old prude, I don't know, but I don't like watching films like this anymore. It's like, even watching this and already seeing it, it just gave me a feeling. It's just like, man, I would rather watch something that's just not quite so crazy. But that's the point, though. That is where this film has lasted, is it does have that effect on people. And even me, I hadn't watched this film in at least 3 years. And even watching it again, I'm just still had that fucking skin crawling effect to me, you know, and that's where I respect it. Like, don't get me wrong, I totally respect the film. It's just not something I'm not going to sit down like, oh man, you know, tonight, damn, I'm going to put in Nekromantik. You know, it's just.
I think that's where we do. That's what I'm like.
Yeah.
There's a film I'll revisit. Usually, like showing someone, a friend of mine who hasn't seen it yet, and that's exactly what I'll do. I'm going to show you Nekromantik tonight. But I see your point of how it's almost like you said earlier, you have to place yourself when this. Almost like if you were to listen to an album from the 70s, like for instance, like a Black Sabbath, which is a band we love.
Yeah.
If you were to pop Paranoid in, and you listen to the production values, and you're kind of like, wow, that's very 70s, or you know. But if you put yourself back then, it's kind of like, that's brilliant. And that's kind of like with this, because if this film were to come out now, you just kind of be like, who cares?
Yeah.
You look at the climate and the cool thing about this film is it's. When York made this film, he was in his early 20s, and this is a total protest film. the climate in Germany back then was, it's unfortunately to this day, Germany. I mean, Texas Chainsaw Massacre literally, I guess, months ago finally got off the German ban list. So they're actually making like a deluxe edition in Germany for the first time ever. Dawn of the Dead is still on this ban list. I Spit on Your Grave. So like at the time, this was about censorship, this film, and Jorg's intentions. This was a protest movie, and he picked a subject matter of necrophilia that he was interested in. He didn't have a lot of money. They shot this, I guess, over a period of 2 years, every weekend, because they all had jobs. And I guess they shot a majority of it in the producer's backyard, which is cool, just knowing that like they stuck with it. And it was a protest film, and he almost got arrested when this came out and all that type of stuff. And I think when you view it in that way, and he had that old school 80s punk anarchist type style to it. So this was I think representative kind of a fuck you government censorship type film. And I thought it was a cool story, and like you said, I think there's a payoff to it. It definitely is a redundant film, but I think as you get to the end of the film, I think you're rewarded with the extremity of it.
Yeah, you're left with something you're going to definitely remember.
Yeah, no question. And like I said, if you were to watch this now, it wouldn't be a big deal. But if you take yourself back to the climate of the 80s, and you've got this young German director with not a lot of money trying to make an impact, I think this is fantastic. And anything that's, to me, artistic provocation is something that whether it be in music or film, I really support. And he adds that artsiness to it, which you can see his talent, I think, in this film. I mean, how low budget it is.
Oh, no doubt.
And it's a loaded gun. I mean, I just respect, particularly going and looking back on something that's been done years ago, his intent of just making a anarchist film, adding some provocation to it. It's something, like you said, you respect it. I guess I appreciate it a little more as far as the extremity of it, and there's almost David Lynch at times in this film, which I know I'm a huge fan of David Lynch. You're not a real big fan of it, but it's got that feel to it, and like you said, something you can appreciate years later.
Well, and then plus, like you talk about, with it being such a low-budget film and them only filming on the weekends, to be able to keep the continuity strong throughout. Like, you never feel like, oh shit, this looks like this was shot a year before. Everything, it stays, the continuity stays strong throughout the whole thing. And it's pretty amazing for something that's so low-budget and shot over such a long period of time like that, for not having the means to make sure everything's real accurate. I mean, that's a testament to the artistic qualities of it,
No question.
Because a lot of films like that, you see people like even The Evil Dead. Look at The Evil Dead, how much that film's revered. Look at Scott in that movie. Look at the footage that was filmed later in Detroit over Tennessee, where his hair's short and the next scene it's long. You didn't have that in this, not at all.
It's a great point.
It's pretty amazing.
Like bringing up Evil Dead, though, I think that's a good comparison in that we all know Evil Dead. The story behind it, but how it still lasts to this day. I almost look at this as kind of like the extreme Evil Dead, dare I say. Just, and it's pure intentions of the filmmaker, and to this day, you can watch Evil Dead and just be blown away by it. And to me, I feel the same way about Necromantic.
And I do too, even though I sit here and I say, that it isn't something that I really like watching anymore, that I totally just respect this film, and it's like, even saying that, if something comes out that's like, oh my god, you have to see it, like Serbian film and stuff, like, I had to see it. I'll still watch it. Doesn't mean I'm gonna like it or sit or get behind it. I'm still gonna watch it. I'm not gonna. I don't think I'll ever see myself get to that level. But it's just not something I purposely seek out anymore. But then again, this came about before shock cinema was in vogue. I mean, now it's like, oh my god, guys, this is going to be the most shocking film ever. It's like so commonplace nowadays, and I think that's part of my own personal backlash against it. It's like, come on, man. No, it's not. It's not going to be the most shocking thing I've ever seen.
I think we're both in agreement that we're not really big on just shocking for the sake of shock.
Yeah, exactly.
I think, but there was some ammunition behind this. This is the climate that he was frustrated. It's way easier for a filmmaker in America to this day, unfortunately. In Germany, to this day, it's difficult to make films, and I think this was his kind of like, like I said, a punk band or a metal band making a song, writing an anti-religious song or whatever, because you're frustrated. I think this was a film made out of frustration, which I think in art is important and valuable, as opposed to nowadays, even like a Serbian film, I think had that type of feel.
Yeah, because
it's a different culture.
Yeah.
You know, as opposed to those some films where you just. I had brought up Angel's Melancholy in the past, where I just don't like that film because I just feel like it was a few guys in a room saying, "How can we shock somebody?" And I don't think there's much to that.
Very juvenile.
Juvenile.
And I haven't seen it. I just no desire. I just after just what you've told me, that film was just like.
There's got to be some heart behind it, as opposed to just let's figure out how we can shock somebody.
Let's just
I think
take
there's a fine line.
Shit and eat it and fuck on it.
I think there's a fine line between, I guess, art and just shock.
Because anybody can just throw a shocking image. I mean, I could sit here and I could think of all kinds of crazy stuff to throw on film.
We could do it right now. Yeah, we could take our pants off.
Yeah, and it would be shocking as hell.
I'm sure it would. We could come up with some stuff.
Both really, right here, right now. Right, like. No.
Some ladies out there might want to see that right now.
It probably will. I mean, especially, headbanger, you got the eye candy, or what was it, the
eye cavity. Put the two of us together, right. I mean.
It's going to happen,
I think we're talking about like an eye tumor.
It probably is, fucking eye heart attack or some shit.
There you go.
Something ridiculous, just total shutdown.
But, there's a fine line. I think we both appreciate calculated, artistic, shock value with a point.
Yeah, more than just shock for shock's sake. Because, I'm totally with you. Because, that's even like the August Underground films. Like, Fred's whole idea behind that, like most of you probably already know, is he was teaching at Tom Savini's school, and he saw all these students that were idolizing Charles Manson, all this
writing
stuff.
letters.
Yeah, and he's like, do you guys even realize what these people do, these serial killers? So that was his ammunition to go out and make a film that was totally, you completely take the veil off and show what serial killers make, or what serial killers are all about, And if you just see August Underground, you could think this and that, but if you know the story behind it, why it was made, it does have more.
He's actually not glorifying it.
No,
I think
not at all.
The average perception would be that he is.
Yeah,
and
he's not. He's trying to make something to be the most realistic, depiction of murder possible from a serial killer's perspective, and that's where I respect things that are made that are shocking, just like what we talked about, and really this is one of the standard setters for that, no question. So I know you usually don't do a rating score, but here on Beyond the Realms we do a 1 to 10 score. So
I'm on your turf, man. I got
having Headbanger here in my studio, it's awesome. So what would you give Necromantic
on the film? Score, I would give it a 8.5.
8.5 out of 10. I give it a 6 out of 10, which, when I think about that, from an artistic level, I should give it a little bit higher. But when I look at the whole scope of the film, the story and everything else, and just how, I just can't, even without the shock value, just the film in itself, I can't watch it too often just because it would become very repetitive and redundant to me. So that's why I would give it a 6 out of 10. But don't get me wrong, it's something I highly respect, and for those of you, I can't really recommend this film unless you are really into shocking cinema, if you're very adventurous with what you watch, if you are, if you watch something like The Hills Have Eyes remake and you are offended by that, and I bring that up because I have had friends that are, on a very low level of watching horror. They don't watch it very often, and they were offended by that. And I'm thinking, man, something like this is something you don't want to watch. You don't even try it. Just please don't try it. But if you can watch films and you're not easily offended, and you want to try something a little bit more extreme, something a little bit more, what I like to call left of center, that's a little bit different and is going to really challenge you to watch, to get through, this is definitely one to watch. This is a good starting point because it's the groundbreaker, man. It's one of the
you are rewarded
ones,
with the end, I'd say.
Yeah. So guys, I guess that's pretty much it. It's a awesome thing having Headbanger here. Charles once again. I'm Jason,
the Headbanger.
You've been watching Beyond the Realms, guys. Thanks for watching. Later.